In this video, I'm going to walk through building the rock, paper, scissors app. Here is the PDF file that shows the two different areas that you're going to be building. One is going to be the design of the screen, and the other is an example of the code in the blocks area that you're going to be building. So I'm going to start here at this area and build this. Now I'm going to say that most of you should have this fairly well figured out, so I'm going to do this rather quickly. Okay, now I have a good representation of what the design screen for rock, papers, and scissors looks like. Let's now move over to the block section of this. Now as I move down the PDF here, there's several things that are going on, and what I'd like to do first is talk through the logic of what's happening here. So the logic flow for this is going to depend upon some factors. The first one we're going to do is we're going to determine how or what the player chooses as their choice, and that'll be through the button. So when the button is clicked, a player will make a choice. Now in this particular logic flow, we're going to say the player has clicked the rock button. Well, we want the logic flow to do this. So if they've clicked the button, then we have to make sure we know what the computer has chosen. We're going to do that in our app through the use of a random number. So the computer is going to choose a variable, set a variable, which we've set up here, and it's going to choose a random integer from 1 to 3. These indicate what number or what the computer has chosen, rock, paper, or scissors. So coming back to our logic diagram, if the player chooses rock and a computer chooses rock, then we're going to set the labels accordingly. Computer chooses rock, and then set the winner label to it's a tie. We then have an else if statement that asks, did the computer choose paper? If so, set the labels accordingly, and then a final else command. That would be the paper didn't choose rock or paper, thus they had to have chosen scissors. So this is what we'll set up as part of the command for if the player chooses rock. So let's go back to the App Inventor, and what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this in App Inventor. So let's go back over here to the blocks window. So the first item I'm going to need is the rock button click. So if the rock button is clicked, we're going to have to do something. Let's go back and look at this. We're going to have to set global computer choice to something. But to do that, first I need to set a variable. So I'll initialize a variable. We'll call this computer choice. And we'll set it math to 0 initially. So when we click this, we're going to want to set that variable. So we're going to set a variable computer choice to a random number. So we can do this. If we go back here, we notice we can choose a random integer, and we can do that under the math. Drag in a random integer. We want the random integer to start at 1 and go to 3. So this way we'll have 3 choices, 1, 2, or 3. We're now going to pull an if construct in, and we will duplicate this first step. This first step, if we go back to our logic diagram, is if computer chooses rock. So we suppose computer chooses rock, so we need to find out. We check the variables if we have to do a math comparison here. If get the value of computer choice, does that equal 1? 1 in our minds is going to be rock. So if that's true, then we need to set some variables here. So we'll do to set the text of the computer's choice to computer chooses rock, and then we can duplicate this and set the label of the winner's label to it's a tie. So I've completed the first then statement. I just now need to work on to the else statement. And this is going to be an else if statement. So I need to add that to the logic. So let me change this to add an else if into the if statement. We're going to be using these over again, so I might as well just duplicate them. So else if this equals 2 in this case, so rock paper, so in this case it'll equal paper. So let me duplicate this. So if it equals paper, I say computer chooses paper. And then I will duplicate this. And we'll say set the winner to, if the player chose rock and the computer chose paper, then it's computer wins. Okay, going back to our logic chart. The last one here is just going to be an else statement, because we know that the answer would have to be a 3 that the computer chose. So we're just going to add one more item in here. I'll drag an else into here. And in this case, all we have to do is do a set command. So we're going to set the computer chooses scissors. And set the winning label to player wins. Okay, let's go test this in the emulator. So here I have the application, and let's click the rock button and see what happens. Okay, in this case, the computer chose paper. Computer wins, as should be the case. Let me click it again. Looks like the result was the same. I'll keep clicking it. In this case, computer chose scissors, player wins. So if I keep trying this over time, I should get different answers. In this case, my emulator looks like it's running exceptionally slow. So it doesn't look like I'm going to get, there it is, I just got a tie. Alright, so let's go back to the App Inventor. Now this is what you need to set up to make the rock button work. You'll need to duplicate this section here 2 more times, one for the when the paper button's clicked and one for when the scissors button clicked. then you'll be done with this lab.